Welcome to Town Hall, everybody. It's a workshop meeting. We'll have a regular town board meeting next week. And tonight we're going over an agenda for next week. We also have a presentation by Jan Dagenstein and his associate about the Town Hall RFP. But before going any further, I'd like to invite our deputy clerk to take attendance.
Good evening and welcome to the workshop meeting of Tuesday, December 6th. And on a roll call, Councilman Troy. Present. Councilman Divany.
Here.
Councilman Valentine.
Here.
Councilman Batari.
Here.
And Supervisor Stewart.
Here, thanks.
Okay, I would ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks so much. Why don't we start out with our presentation by Mr. Dagenstein. This is just for folks, I think actually everybody who's here right now, except for maybe for Tom over here, might have been here last time we met when we had discussion of the request for proposals for architectural studies of the town's office space, meeting space, parking space, and other needs, because this part of Town Hall is old and decrepit, and the town board allocated funding to study what our options are to be as far as moving forward. And we wanted to invite the Dagenstein Company to talk to the town board about its qualifications as far as providing the service of this study for the town. So the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor and Councilman. We appreciate the opportunity to chat briefly with you regarding our approach to the Town Hall expansion. With me tonight is Marcelo Reggiardo, Principal of Alianza Services, who will be discussing space planning and furniture evaluation, which was part of the scope of services. Absent this evening is a representative of McLaren Engineering. They couldn't rearrange their schedule on such short notice, but you are somewhat familiar with them. I believe that they've already presented with another architect. If you hadn't believed our team was qualified to perform the services, we wouldn't be here talking to you tonight. We'd like to talk to you about what distinguishes us from others, but before I do that, I wanted to make clear to you that we are clear that this request for service is not for the design of a building. It is rather to evaluate through a cultural survey and through observation the spatial requirements of all the departments which will occupy the resultant structure and their relationships to one another and to the public. We will perform this evaluation with respect to the existing town hall site in several ways. One of them is to, as it was proposed, put an addition above the town hall, then possibly to put an addition adjacent to the town hall, and then alternatively to remove the building altogether and put in a new town hall facility to replace this one. In addition to that, we were asked to look at the Rockland Psychiatric Center site and see if there's a possibility of moving the entire facility, including the Police and Justice Department, to the RPC site, thus freeing this site up for sale or other potential use by the town. That has not been determined yet. We also were going to look at the degree of disruption of each of these. We're going to look at the fiscal and temporal modifications and changes that that will be required for each one of them, because when you put this all together in a matrix, it will help you, the town council, decide which way you want to move. So your end product will be a tool by which an architect will be able to proceed to a design and then to construct a new building. At this stage, your architect planner needs to identify the site constraints and benefits, including those of the existing old side building. You need to understand site infrastructure at both locations. Thus, McLaren, as a civil engineer, has been brought on board just to look at that infrastructure and to see what that constitutes. And you need to know the structural capacity of this old building. Can you actually support a second story on top of it? What does it mean with regard to codes and the requirements of current codes to seismic and wind loads, for instance? What you don't need is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineering services at this time. By my observation, both now and many, many years before, the systems have been updated, but they're still archaic. They do not meet present code requirements. They do not meet sustainable goals. Regardless of what solution comes about, there will be new mechanical and electrical and plumbing in those buildings. You do need the services of a space planner. That's really a key element here. You need to know what square footage you are going to need and how that square footage is going to be applied. There are differences now in how tasks are performed, and those differences are going to continue to change into the future, so you need someone who can vision that. And that's all that Alianza does. That's their job, and we're happy to have them on board. So why our firm instead of another one? I've been a resident of Orangetown for 58 years. Some of you weren't even born then. I live here, I pay taxes here. When there's a tax increase, I bleed just like my neighbors. So I am extremely concerned about how money is spent, and it has to be spent in a good way. So I have that additional incentive, and there's that empathy that goes with it. Long before Hovnanian made their proposal to put housing on the RPC site, I, with another resident of the community, were assigned to be facilitators so that the town constituency could voice what they felt should be done to Rockland Psychiatric Center. We put together all their thoughts and came up with a plan for the center, which actually stands today. It's a combination of housing and corporate and the golf course and other recreational facilities, and that is interwoven with the state uses that will be continuing. I also did a good deal of work on this building way, way, way back before there was a police and justice facility. I did the survey of this facility and its relation to the police department and made the recommendation that the police department should get out of here as quickly as they could, that this just didn't meet their requirements and they needed a state-of-the-art facility. Thus, you do have a new facility, and that one does do extremely well for the town. And I've also done a great deal of government architectural work, mostly for the state of New York and the county of Rockland. For example, our firm did the complex renovations at the county legislative chambers, and that included relocations and staging of all the work and creating accessibility. We also did similarly complex renovations to the Rockland Community College Cultural Arts Center. We successfully completed the radio control facility at the County Emergency Control Center, and we're just now completing contract documents for the sheriff's redundant radio room. Should the main facility be inaccessible, there would be another facility. Beyond that, we also did a complex project for Nyack Hospital. It's in the news today, but we designed the cancer care center at Nyack Hospital. We did the entire campus, redid the parking there, and actually came up with more parking, even though we were adding more square footage to the ground, more footprint to the ground of that building. And we were able to connect that building to the existing structures at Nyack Hospital. I don't want to take any more time talking about what I've done in the past, but I do want Marcelo to have an opportunity to talk about what he plans to do in evaluating the site. So, Marcelo, please.
I want to thank the council for giving me an opportunity to present, and to thank Jan for making me part of the team associated with the RFP response. Our participation focuses primarily on space utilization. I'm a local business owner. My company is headquartered in Nyack, New York. We're a full-service contract furniture dealership, and within the scope of services that we provide, much of what we do looks at performance evaluation of current spaces and how spaces can be utilized in the future. At the end of the day, whether it's a commercial opportunity, a higher ed opportunity, or a government opportunity, one of the things that we look at is to see how the real estate that exists or is yet to be developed can work the hardest for the end user. And that doesn't necessarily mean utilizing the current standards that exist for office space. There is a new way of working that incorporates many different things, technology, ergonomics, furniture, and where traditionally, particularly in government applications, there was a very defined formula that a office had to be 10 by 12 and a workstation had to be 8 by 8 in terms of square footage. We take a 30,000 square foot approach in evaluating how people are working and what are the actual needs, not for now, but from 5 years, 7 years, and 10 years from now. And I think it's very important to make that distinction, because oftentimes when planning of this type is being done, we focus on existing standards. And the reality is that the design of interiors is really being driven by technology and how the tools that people are being given to perform their tasks are being used. So part of what we do and what we're proposing is to meet with the council and to meet with the different department heads to do visioning sessions, to see what they really need and how they're using what they have now, and to develop a program, actually a prescription similar to a doctor's prescription, and say, this is what we recommend for future planning. And what that could mean is a distancing from a traditional planning platform where you might have a traditional prescription which might be antiquated, both from a use perspective, and then something that many people don't take into consideration is how the space relates to an HR perspective, from retaining the people that you want to keep and attracting more people to come to work for the town. So creating a space that can be developed for future use, that takes into consideration ergonomics, that takes into consideration technology, and that takes into consideration the space utilization, is what my firm brings together with Jan's proposal. And at the end of the day, it's broken down into basic space planning, taking an inventory of what you currently have and what can be repurposed. We're huge proponents of not throwing things away, seeing what can be repurposed. This table is in perfect condition, whether it's at this space or in another location. We would definitely reuse that, perhaps refinish it, keeping in mind the overall cost of the project. So we're very excited to work with the Dang and Shine Group and to have the opportunity to bring our expertise to the table. And at the end, it's truly giving a prescription for the people that are working for the town to be able to be the most efficient, to be able to have an environment that they're not only comfortable in, but that they can prosper in. Thank you very much.
We'll entertain any questions you may have at this time.
I have a couple. Thank you once again, and also just your obviously the firm is extremely well qualified, and the work that you've done in Orangetown and nearby is something we're thankful for. This is, in terms of clarifying sort of who does what on the team, this study is in good part kind of a cost estimating. Like, we need to know what is the more affordable option among various that are feasible from a perspective of how much space we need. And I'm just wondering, is that something that is Alianza primarily a project estimator in addition to the sort of space planning, or is that more your bailiwick?
We have three segments of this because there are three levels of expertise that are required for it. From the standpoint of constructing a building, and a very specific building from that standpoint, we have been very successful in doing cost estimating. We come in within 5 or maximum 10% of the cost, and we know keenly at this point that you go out for bonding, you can't go back to the well a second time. You have to have everything done properly the first time. One of the ways that we are able to do that when we're building a building, and that's beyond what we're doing, is to have add alternates so that should the bids come in low, there's an ability to add more to the wish list of what's going to happen. But we have been successful in that portion of it. From the standpoint of civil and structural engineering, we would bring in McLaren Engineering because they do that. They have their own departments to do cost estimating. From the standpoint of space planning and furnishings, we have Alianza. There have been a couple of occasions that I'm aware of locally where buildings have been built in budget and then they don't have the money for the furniture. So you've got an empty building. You can't do that. I would step back from that. I can puff all I want about how successful we are. It might be worth the investment of an additional few $1,000s to get a totally independent cost estimator in to look at the proposals that we bring forward, the alternatives that we bring forward, to see what those costs would be. That is something that we could discuss in greater detail at another time, but we feel very confident that we can provide that service for you.
So not just the various costs related to furnishings, but the sort of overall thing, because one of the first decision points for the town board is kind of go that way or go that way as far as how to bring the building department and fire inspectors and so on up into a consolidated town hall, and kind of whether to put it there on top of here over there, or move us kit and caboodle to Rockland Psych with the police department. Those kind of overall costs are really important to know. Just to know as far as decision making of which option to deepen our understanding of. So is that because I hear Alianza talking a lot about the sort of the interior design and furnishings and so on. Is that overall cost estimating a part of the Alianza thing, or is it a part of the? I may
No.
not have heard you
The
exactly. 'Cause I
cost
heard-
estimating beyond the furniture and furnishings that will be necessary to complete
Right.
the building are the responsibilities of McLaren and Degenshine.
Oh, okay,
So they will be done separately. It's
gotcha. So you
there-
bring his numbers into your overall
Absolutely,
spreadsheet.
they
and
have
then
to
take
be.
it from there.
And we do take a very hard look at what those costs are. At Rockland Psychiatric Center, we know that there are costs that have to be addressed, from traffic, outside, infrastructure, hazardous materials, foundations of buildings that have long disappeared from the surface of the earth. There are a tremendous number of aspects that have to be looked at. And there's infrastructure underground here. Will we have to move a major water line in order to put an addition onto the building?
Mm-hmm.
Those types of things have to be considered. And that's where you will get a matrix of costs. And then you'll be able to see, well, it may cost a little bit more to do Plan A, but it will be a lot easier and to execute Plan B. And it may actually, in the long run, be less expensive. It may actually provide a better flow of operations from one department to another. So those are the things that we look at.
Members of the town board, do you have questions for Mr. Degenshine?
Just quick, so Jen, when your firm finishes with their proposal, we're going to have something in hand which will give us an idea of not only the size of the building we'll need, because that's what this gentleman will be working on, but the approximate cost and options.
Correct.
So we'll have that in hand, and your estimating is from history. How do you end up with your estimated cost to what the buildings actually cost?
As I mentioned before, we're usually within 5 to 10% of the costs that we produce, and that doesn't necessarily mean 5% lower than the actual cost. Sometimes we are actually a little bit more conservative than the bid phase of it. So we have a very good track record that way. If the town should decide that they want to build an extra story onto the building afterwards, of course, that's not going to fit into a construction budget. So there are options that can be developed, but we are good at staying within our serviced number.
Okay. I'm good.
Well, I wanted to thank you again for the opportunity to present our services to you, and we look forward to future discussions with you.
Thanks so much, Jan. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming and taking the time. Let's see. Now, I know we have a few items here. It's going to be a pretty short meeting. I am going to call for an executive session when we finish to get counsel on potential legal action. And I have a discussion item that I want the board to take a look at that's not on the agenda right now that relates to sort of shared services and efficiency options. So, but anyway, just to start things off, and these are fairly, for the most part, fairly routine resolutions. Number one is the agreement with the Sharks for pool usage. And I don't know if there's any conversation on the town board. Do you have any questions for town attorney or Parks Department relating to that? This,
That's a set percentage of what we pay to the South Orangetown School District, based on the Sharks' usage of the pool.
it's a routine thing. We do it every year.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
So,
Except it
any
goes-
major changes in this, Eric?
It
No.
just goes up every year, that's
Okay.
all.
Number two is the caretaker agreement for Nike Park, and setting the rent for that. We have a town employee who lives up there, caretakes, keeps an eye on it, and that's that one. Number two is a caretaker agreement for another townhouse, Henry Borst Park. Number four is, all right, this is the continuation of our streetlight project. And this is the approving the advertisement and circulation of a request for bids for the maintenance and energy efficiency conversion of the streetlights from their old kind of energy guzzling version to LED. And the town board in the past has authorized the town to purchase lights and work with ONR and the Public Service Commission to get that done. In the meantime, bless you, Dennis, the town finance, myself, and attorneys, for the most part, have been working with an expert on LED conversions to get to the point where we're ready to issue a request for proposals with very specific language about what kinds of appliances and services are needed. And that's where we're at right now. And that's the issue number four. Any questions or comments regarding that one? You guys all set? Okay. Yes, we'll be happy. Number five is, this is a Estuary Grant. Became aware of it a few weeks ago. In this case, it's kind of a neat grant. It's for identifying flood-prone areas on tributaries to the Hudson River. So we look at the Sparkhill Creek, which, as we all know, is prone to flooding. The town has taken numerous actions related to this. The Highway Department, engineering, green infrastructure, culverts. We've done grants for culverts and bridges, all geared towards trying to mitigate flooding on the Sparkhill. This one, the nice thing about this grant is that it costs the town nothing. It's and it's up to $99,000 for a study, which, if we get the money and do the study, it positions the town to follow up with funding requests for specific culvert and other related flood mitigation measures. And that's why it's on here, and it's a pretty exciting opportunity. Hopefully we'll succeed. If the town board has any questions or comments about this. It's in partnership with the Hudson River Estuary Program, with the Chazen Company, which is a well-known engineering and design outfit, and obviously under the supervision of our highway and engineering departments. Any questions, concerns, thoughts? Okay.
Are there any strings attached?
Well, the first string I usually look for is whether matching funds are required with a grant. And in this case, like I mentioned before, they're not. So, I guess the only strings are ones which we embrace with eyes wide open. If we take the grant, if we are offered it, we have to fulfill its purpose, and that would be, essentially allowing these consultants access to the town and working with them to ensure that they have the best possible information about the tributary and where the flood-prone areas are, access to maps, our own experience. I mean, bear in mind, our town and our staff are basically the experts when it comes to the Sparkill Creek, along with the county drainage agency. So I think our cost or our responsibility is really cooperation with the consultant to make sure that they deliver the best possible analysis.
I think Paul was asking more, does it require the town to do any affirmative steps? Do we have to refrain from doing anything? Is there anything that we're going to be, obligated to undertake? I think that's what Paul was asking, not.
I understand we
Not
have
that I know
to,
of.
I understand we have to work with them to gain them access and stuff, but at the end, is there any strings attached where we're gonna be, we found this, now you gotta do it? So let's just make sure there are nothing like that.
No. I mean, I've read through the application, and it's really designed as if depending on the outcome of the study, it enables you to make a good case for further funding for infrastructure improvements.
Okay.
But, I mean, I guess the follow-up question, if we take that money, what are we obligated to do? Are we,
Just the study?
We're obligated basically to pay the consultant the fee to provide the analysis that.
So just the study?
Right.
Okay.
But the goal is to identify, areas of vulnerability and concepts for flood mitigation. And it's something that we do, but maybe not as systematically as we could. Our highway department engineers know very well where some culverts need to be upgraded and things like that. But to have a kind of a comprehensive analysis like this really might bring to light certain projects which the town or funders may have an interest in funding in the future, but it wouldn't obligate the town to undertake those any more than we'd be obligated to undertake anything else, simply for being aware that it's important to our community. So that's a grant application essentially.
now, does legal look at these grant applications before we submit them? John, did you look at this grant application?
The application hasn't actually been written yet. This is the that is.
I mean, the
I
question
wouldn't
is,
sign something without running it by the lawyers. To put it very
but you're
simply.
asking us to, shouldn't the lawyers look at this before we put it on to make sure that it's not obligating the town to do anything that we may not want to do? I mean, that's what we have the attorneys for, is to look at, possible consequences of town action. I mean, I've said this before. Usually grants, there's strings attached. I'd like to know what those strings are. I'd like John, before we vote on this next week, to look at it, or someone in his office to look at
Well,
it.
that would be welcome to have that review. And furthermore, one thing that we've done in the past is, given that there's a time frame to this and deadlines, is also to write into the resolution that, the actual submission, pre-submission to be reviewed by legal, so that we kind of track it every step of the way. But at some point, the town board, has asked me to make sure that whenever I propose grants targeting funding for the town, and that the town board be aware of them and approve them. So that's what this is for. But this application, hasn't been written yet. The purpose of it is knowable from the invitation for applications, but the actual details of it need to be written by the folks involved. So why don't we say that? We'll have it on here for now. We'll give it a second, or first look, depending on who's seen it so far, as far as the application, the request for proposals, and and prior to submission, we'll look at the completed application and make sure that it passes muster.
You have an opportunity, even if we get the grant, whether you accept the grant or not, to look at whatever
Right.
strings are attached or not.
That's a good point Dennis makes. You can apply for it, be offered, and decide not to accept funds. This relates to the Orangetown Housing Authority. We've had this discussion before. Jeff Bensick is here, and he can talk more about it. But it's a negative declaration that authorizes the town to guarantee the financing going forward.
We've had several meetings over the last several weeks with bond counsel and a financial advisor, and Jeff has been an integral part of this, been very, very helpful. Two members of the Housing Authority Board, Robert Tompkins and Walter Wedgie, are involved in this through every meeting. And the bond counsel is the one that drew up this resolution. This is our next step. We had the meeting we had last Friday. We ended up choosing which of the underwriters will be used. We went through a whole process of going out to underwriters and came down to 3 underwriters, and then had a vote based on what they brought to the table. And so we have an underwriter now. This is the next step, is we're moving forward with this bond proposal.
Yeah, thanks for that explanation, and thank you, Jeff, for working on this, and
Thank
the
you.
legal team as well. And the folks who live at Courtwood Village will enjoy the benefit of having rent increases that are not as great as they otherwise would be because of this work.
I don't know if you say enjoying it is
Well, they're not going to be happy about any increase, but rents have to go up from time to time no matter
part
what.
of being a senior.
and with this
People
move-
don't think there should be
It'll
any
keep
rent
rents from going
increases.
up as fast as they otherwise would.
But what's critical here is the fact that to keep it as a viable place for seniors in the town, we need roofs, we need boilers, we need drainage, and this has to be done. And that's going to be incumbent upon the board to get that across, not just to the 10 or 15 residents that show up at our monthly meetings, but to get it across to all the residents in the Housing Authority.
And just so the board knows, by doing this refunding, doing this negative declaration, the Orangetown Housing Authority is gonna save $1.3 million on the refunding. So it's a lot of work to put this together, but there is a big payoff for that. And that means that they don't have to raise an additional $1.3 million incrementally to do all those infrastructure improvements. So, yes, will have to go up, but it's allowing the housing authority to continue as a going concern, whereas it might not have been able to otherwise.
Thank you, Jeff. Number 7 is an agreement with Ramland Holdings LLC, which is a data center down the street. Some of us have visited over there, and it's to rent a bit of space for backup for the town data. Right, Anthony? All right.
This is a very prudent thing to do that Anthony is doing in terms of having a backup disaster recovery site, especially when you consider the shape of this building and where all our data equipment is. You know, this is, I back this 100%, you know, and I've been down there and gotten tours of 1547 Ramland Road, 1547 Critical Systems. But I think they have a very good setup that really meets our needs. So, good job, Anthony.
Seems like $500 a month is a small price to pay to make sure that if this place goes up in flames, everybody can still access their vital data. Number 8 is a change in the agreement with Fiber Technology Networks. Just reading this because this looks like another Anthony thing.
Just for the circuit for the disaster recovery? Okay, thank you. Yeah, you have to.
All right, this is to get the data over to Ramland.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
you need,
So you need to rent space at Ramland and then rent space on the circuit
Yes.
to get data going over there. How often does the backup occur? Is it hourly or what? Every 2 hours.
yes. And we have up-to-date data.
Number 9 is also from IT, this is surplusing a whole bunch of phone equipment that has been upgraded and getting some money for it.
I'm sorry. Which equipment
They're
is it?
telephones.
Oh, it's telephones. So this is
I asked the same
identifying.
question of Anthony about 10 minutes ago.
I have my old phone back.
You want your old phone back?
Do you want a flip phone?
Number 10 is a couple of folks retiring from having served the town well for many years. It's starting with Michael Catania from the Highway Department. Jim, I hope you'll convey the regards to the town board from Michael for his service to the town.
Yeah, Mike Catania has been a tremendous supervisor here in the highway department, and I'm surprised that he's retiring. Jim, you should never let that happen. I don't know.
After 33 years of service. Yeah. Number 11 is Paul Whitty, our code enforcement officer, after 30 years of service. So good luck, Paul, in your future endeavors. Number 12 is Michael Amote from the Highway Department, also 33 years of service. Congratulations to him and best wishes as well. Thank you for the service. Number 13 is a small refund on film fees. This is coming from the town clerk. And that's it for scheduled items. We got new business from Councilman Divany, and don't let me forget, John, you said we were going to get legal counsel on the, I don't know exactly how you want to describe that. Basically, legal counsel on a possible lawsuit or something. So we're being secretive about that for
I
good
guess this
reasons.
is new business item number 14. Was contacted by the Pearl River Chamber of Commerce regarding the lights. They need our help again, and they've asked for us to take $15,000 out of the parking funds to help them with the lights again this year.
We did this last year. Tom and I put this in. The money from the parking authority, from the parking meters in Pearl River is designated to be used for upgrades to the parking district. And this is an important time for the commercial district, during the holiday season, so I definitely support doing this.
So what kind of, are we talking about Christmas display lights?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh,
Holiday display
holiday,
lights.
sorry.
Stay out of trouble here, politically
Seasonal.
correct.
Seasonal cheer.
No, we did it last year, and, I mean,
Matter of fact, when we did it last year, came down to the last second. They weren't even going to put up lights because I guess the stuff that they had was all aged out. And they were really between the rock and the hard place. And people were upset that the business district wasn't going to do anything. So in that case, we stepped in, using the money from the parking district. So what they're trying to do is keep upgrading what they have, and they're using other money that they raised through their own fundraisers, like Pearl River Day. But just, I think it's a small price to pay for helping out the business district. So we're going to add that on as a resolution, Tom?
yeah.
Thank you.
That's, all right, and then number 15. This has to do with aloof. I think we should put on for a vote next week, authorizing the town attorney to file injunctive relief regarding aloof plastics. They denied their performance standards, and they're in violation of numerous town codes, and, they shouldn't be operating because they haven't complied with any of Judge Finning's commands. They haven't responded to John Giardello in a satisfactory way. So I think we should go to Supreme Court and get injunctive relief until they comply with the numerous requests that this town board and the residents of this town have made.
You know, I've talked about this before. I get all the emails every day. They're rolling in about Aloof. George Swigert from the DEC, I see his responses back. It just, I don't know, it just strikes me DEC is just spinning their wheels. I know what they're shooting for is the January response. But to me, the fact that they can't do anything immediately is incredible to me, because I know how the DEC treats us here in the town, you know, with the sewer discharges and whatever. They come down and hammer us. I don't get how they let this keep going on and on and on. And I support the motion that Tom has on this thing here. And the funny thing is, we just missed the attorney for Aloof was here earlier.
Well, I'm not saying it's going to make it, to me, it's Aloof hasn't responded to our reasonable request. And I don't know if it's going to be resolved before they resolve it with DEC, but I'm just tired of sitting back and letting them do what they want to do at their pace and according to their, you know, what makes sense for them. This is, you know, they were denied the performance standards. We as a town board, you know, to me, it's a slap in the face. We got to do something. Let's go to Supreme Court, you know, and I'm sure they'll get their lawyers, but you know what? We've got to do something for the residents of this town.
One of the things, they're going 24/7, right, 6 days a week. It's a thing, they shouldn't be, I don't think they should be allowed to go 24/7. I know it's probably in the contracts, you know, in the past or okay by the building department, but if they have all these problems, they should be cutting back and be a good neighbor. They're not being a good neighbor at all. They're not addressing the issues here for the people in that community. And the funny thing about the people in the community, it's not the people next door. It's people many houses away in all directions, whether east, west, north, or south, depending on which way the wind is blowing. But it's a bad situation.
Question for you. I mean, first of all, I think you guys are right. The Aloof has absolutely dragged its feet. They haven't complied with town codes, and they are under a sort of a process with the DEC. The end product, according to the DEC, is a series of recommendations and an order on consent that requires them to install various fixes. What I'm curious about is when you, because I'm not a lawyer, I don't really understand. I honestly don't quite understand what you're proposing. What would be the time frame for the?
I can't give you a time frame, but what I'm saying is, the time frame the DEC has given them is I think a lot more than this town board would have given them. The performance standards were denied. I haven't seen. I've gone to both hearing dates. I haven't seen them take, you know, affirmative steps. The response is, well, we have an engineer and he's trying to work on it, and you know, we're doing our best, and you know, their best isn't good enough.
Yeah, I'm just in terms of.
We're going to go to court.
When does that court date? When is it anticipated that injunctive relief would be provided?
I don't know. Even if the court may not give us injunctive relief.
Oh, right.
We can go in and we can go in and John can file the paperwork, and he can ask for, you know, expedited process to get in front of a judge, and it's in the hands of the judge. But at least we can say we're doing everything within our power to address this issue. I'm not guaranteeing that the judge is going to see it our way, but at least I can look at people when they say, well, you're not responding to our needs. I said, well, we went to the Supreme Court for Rockland County and we presented our best case and they didn't see it our way. But at least we're not relying on the DEC, who, if Aloof goes in there and says we used our best efforts and we're working on this, I'm sure the DEC is going to say, all right, we're going to give you another couple months to come up with this plan.
And so I'm wondering if the injunctive relief part could help get Aloof to comply with the highest possible standards of the DEC. If those things kind of go together in some way.
Well, I'm just saying, it's the only option we have as a town board right now. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. I think that this may be the flame that goes underneath them that pushes them a little bit, so I support it.
Me too. Another idea which I think is out there that's worth thinking about is if you look at the Aloof owns a fair amount of land around their facility that bumps right up against residential, and typically in Orangetown, when you go from residential to commercial, it doesn't go straight to light industrial. It goes through LO or LIO, and one of the things that I've been looking at and talking with our staff about is what would be involved in having a similar kind of transition. Instead of having all of the land that bumps up against the residential area be LI, to have kind of the rear residential side LIO or LO or something like that. And I just want to make the board aware of that idea as a sort of a long-term protection for the community to have the undeveloped area in the rear there. Typically you don't have LI basically right next to people's houses. It's buffered out with LO or LIO. So it's another way that the town board, in addition to what we're doing, might want to consider taking a look at that.
I also support Tom's recommendation, and I would also like to get on the agenda. I know that John and Joe have been working on selecting a company to do the testing. Can we get that?
Well,
Can we get that contract and approve them and let them go do the testing?
I forwarded four different companies to Joe and John.
If they've been reviewing them, and I
They-
talked to Joe, I thought he narrowed it down.
He had one company that he liked the best, that would give us the best measures of air quality, and he's just doing follow-up questioning. You think we could have it next week, Joe, or?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
All right,
So
we'll
let's
look to
get that on there
then.
and get that rolling. Good, thank you,
Good
Joe.
reminder. Just moving on for that, another new business item which I handed out, which is a discussion item, and that is that, and I have a little memo here. I'm sorry I don't have copies for everybody, but basically, we're always talking about ways of maybe sharing services or getting more efficient in terms of how we provide public services in collaboration with other agencies. So, our highway department plows state and county roads when through an arrangement. The town and the school districts share recreational resources. Obviously, our police make use of a whole host of sheriff department resources. This grant from the Department of State offers a small amount of money, but you can put it together with other municipalities to have a bit of some money to pay a consultant to look for options for efficiency through shared services and other collaborations between municipalities, between town village, town school district, or whatever you got. It's a small amount of money, but I think we could get it. I've talked with the Department of State, and I've talked with a consultant who's been successful in helping communities, and it looks like a reasonable proposition. And it's described here. It's basically $12,500 per unit of government that participates, with the unit of government putting in their own 12.5. So, and that pays for a study, which then, if it yields a cost-saving and service enhancement arrangement between municipalities, and you go on to pursue that and implement it, you can get more money for implementing, which can then either entirely or partially reimburse the money spent on the study in the first place. So they're trying to create incentives for communities to work together to find ways of doing more with less, and also enhancing services. So I don't have, the first question people always ask or think of is, well, what are you thinking? Is it this or that? Which department? And I honestly feel like we really do need an inventory of options, kind of see what towns like ourselves have done in other places, and see what kind of recommendations might be made. And so that's really the purpose of this funding, is to get money, to get someone involved who could take the time to go through department by department, service area by service area, and look at us, look at neighboring municipalities and say, hey, here's a way that you guys might be able to work together, save some money, and everybody comes out ahead. So that's what this is, and I wanted the town board to take a look at this. The version that I'll email to you has hot links, so you can easily click on the grant application. Again, in this case, it is it's a matching thing. So you got to put in dollar for dollar what you get, and the increase goes up for every unit of government that participates. So, and I have spoken with George Homan, Supervisor of Clarkstown, about this, and he's talking to his town board to see if we might start a process of looking at each town, but also I think it's worth looking at school districts. I know a year or so ago, our highway superintendent and others and I sat down to look at the school district in terms of maybe sharing plowing of driveways and parking lots and other ways of perhaps collaborating. You know, we need to keep looking for ways of collaborating and build upon what we already do, which is really substantial. I mean, the town has multiple ways of sharing and collaborating with other agencies, and I think we should keep on doing that. So that's what this study would enable. I will work on it if the town board can provide some guidance as to kind of which way to go, or any ideas.
Does the state or this program have any examples where the efficiency study led to savings through shared services? I'd like to have examples just so I know what.
Yeah, that's a great question, Tom. And the version I emailed to you is going to have a live link to. They just got so much information. It's incredible. But they have it divided. This sort of whole matrix divided into different categories with studies and reports that address everything from just a whole host of different ways of working together. And it's all there. It's just rather overwhelming to take that on and to think about each of our activities and not knowing exactly how the neighboring towns or villages provide the same services, where there might be an overlap or an opportunity to work together. So yes, that information exists. There's volumes and volumes of it, and we're kind of wading through that in the context of our particular case would be what the study would do. Hopefully identifying, some areas where there's some really feasible options. I mean, we all may have ideas about how to guide that process, and I hope you'll email me with, but I don't think, I'm not in a position to say we should look at X or let's look at Y. I just kind of want to find out, what the experts think.
Well, I'm interested in the study, Andy. I think it's a good idea. I'd also like to see if we can get the RBA to come in and give a presentation on the white paper that they did.
Thank you for actually mentioning that, Paul. I was talking to Al Samuels about that today. He's been doing presentations on their study, which I know you were part of that. The RBA has a study about the cost of government and taxes, and it really does a lot of analysis of the data, and he's doing presentations to various Rotary clubs and other civic groups and local governments. Scheduling him to come in and talk about that study, I think, would be really helpful. He talks both about municipal government and about school districts, and the focus has been on both of those. So, if the rest of the town board would be happy with that, I'm happy to schedule him to come in at a workshop and talk about that study. I think that's a good
Just
idea.
give him a time limit, though.
What's that?
Give him a time limit.
Sure. We'll do that.
He likes to present. Yes. He won't listen to it, but at least he'll give him a guideline.
So are you guys all right with me putting this grant? We'll take a look at it. Yeah, take a look at it. There was a motion for executive session, and I want to use the right phrasing, John, but we need attorney legal advice on a potential lawsuit involving the town. Is that adequate? Because executive session is, we have a second over here from Troy. All in favor, say aye. So we're going to go into executive session. Do I have any? Okay. But since we are planning to make that the last action. Is there any reason why we would be coming back into session
No.
to take action in any way, John? Okay, so I can confidently say that we're going into executive session and we're going to adjourn. So Councilman Divany has an adjournment
Well,
he'd like to make.
there's Jacob Frank,
Yeah, I want to I want to talk a little bit about Jacob.
so go.
Okay, Jacob,
Have it.
I thought you had another name.
I do.
Jacob Frankie was a gentleman who volunteered, he's a scientist, I think he was involved with Lamont Doherty, who volunteered with the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, and he built, maintained, organized, and planned hiking trails all up and down between New Jersey and New York. And just really an amazing guy, led cleanups to keep Rockland beautiful, you know, sort of trained volunteers, great appreciator of the outdoors. Passed away recently. I know it's a huge loss for the Trail Conference. And anybody wants to see his obituary memorial, you can look at the Trail Conference's website. And I just wanted to close this meeting in his name.
And then there, Leon Loy, who was a 60-year resident of Pearl River. He's my sister's father-in-law, great guy. Fled Europe during World War II. His father actually died fighting in World War II. And was a 60-year member of the IBEW for Rockland County. And I know he was beloved by my sister and my brother-in-law Ed and his grandkids, and he'll be missed. So,
Thanks for that. How do you spell the last name?
L-O-Y.
L-O-Y.
Leon Loy.
Okay. All right, thanks. Well, in the names of these good folks, I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second? From here?
Second.
Tom, all in favor, say aye. The ayes have it. All right, executive session.